All right, welcome back once again. Show number 11, our second of
11.
our double digit series. And
Yes.
it is your home sweet home with Eric Groff as our resident realtor, Esquire, Navex Realty. Let me get that on there while I'm thinking about it. Boom.
Thanks. Thanks, Fletch.
EricGroffRealtor.com, Navex Realty. He is navigating you to your home sweet home, whether he's your agent or you're watching this through this show and he's giving you all this fantastic advice, or you're reading his blog, or all the above. I'm Fletch, obviously, with the Fletch Entertainment Network. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. So Facebook, give us a like and share. YouTube, click on subscribe and click on the bell so you get all the notifications of all the wonderful things that we're doing here on the mothership. 2 weeks ago, I said that. So this week, Eric and I have been talking off camera for a little bit, as we always do, and the topic of conversation went to an area that he was kind of thinking about for a show topic, and it sort of just all kind of made sense. It all fell together. So what we want to talk about, what Eric's going to do a lot of talking about, is basically when you buy your home and you're a homeowner, you won't have a policy in place that he's going to talk about that basically is what happens to your home if your untimely death. If something happens to you, what happens to your home? You wanted to avoid probate, basically, by having things in place. Nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody likes to talk about life insurance, but it's always great things to get a hold of and find the people in your life that you know will be willing to be a part of it, hammer it out, do it, get it done, eat some pizza, it's all over with, and then whenever something happens, you know, things to take care of, and you can feel better about it, especially if you got kids. You know, a lot of us have kids, and me and Eric both do, so you always want to have those things taken care of, you know, things in place for untimely. We all want to live to be 100. We're not all going to live to be 100. So untimely deaths, like really too early, as many of us all know, good friends that did not live nearly long enough as they should have when you come to the quality of life. So we're not going to be downers. You know, this is going to be up. This is good stuff to know. It's good things to get a hold of.
It is
death, though.
it's a tough subject, Fletch.
Right.
Hey, let's get together, and I want to talk to you about death. No, I don't want to talk about death. Me personally, I struggle with this topic so much so that in my own life with my mother, I'm grateful for the steps that she took in preparing things accordingly for a smoother transition of assets that she had accumulated over her lifetime that she could pass down to my sister and I. But, gosh, this is not something that I wanted to get to the brass tacks of with Mom. Hey, Mom, what are you going to do, if you pass and we have this home? Is this all set up as what needs to be? I mean, during that time period of my life, Fletch, which was not too long ago, about 10 years is really a starting point, in hindsight of, wow, we probably need to start thinking about something like this, because my mom was just beginning to enter a nursing home at that time, 10 years ago. And, I didn't know how her disease would play out and whether or not she had the wherewithal at that time to make the kind of decisions that would need to be made. So thank goodness she had done all that prior to. She had put me in what's known as a power of attorney status.
So you didn't know that she had done that?
Well, right. I had known that she had put me in POA because what we had seen.
I see.
We had seen some changes with Mom. She recognized some of her faults and realized that it was time to relinquish some of that control over her life over to somebody she trusted.
So having that power of attorney allowed you to make decisions on her behalf.
Yeah, so there's two different kinds of power of attorney that you can have. One is a durable power of attorney, and that allows you, and again, all this is that I'm going to talk about today has to be reviewed with an attorney.
Sure.
Every little detail that you talk about amongst individuals in your family, or if it's you personally and you're trying to convey what you wish, get an attorney involved specifically that handles this kind of stuff. So I'm just sharing an experience side of things. So take that with a grain of salt. Um, we had not established a medical power of attorney um, together. My sister and her had. My sister was better suited for that because she had been in the medical industry all of her life, and I knew very little about doctors, medicines, and healthcare in general. So my strength was in banking and managing, things for a process, right? So whether it was paying taxes, paying bills that were due from individual doctors or treatment facilities, or getting meds taken care of payment wise, that's where my mother needed me to handle those kind of affairs. So I had the durable power of attorney so that I could handle financial things. But at that particular time in her life, Fletch, we had already moved on from owning real estate. My mom was in a place where, a nursing home, and that was a keen indicator that things were changing, or it was I should call it an assisted living, is where she was when we actually did the paperwork. So she still had her wherewithal, and the attorney that we worked with recognized that we didn't need a doctor step forward and say, she's coherent and she's cognizant about what decisions she's making, right? So you hope not to get there in order to establish that kind of declaration as POA. But if that's necessary because of an accident, you and I talked off camera about a car accident in your family and how that dynamic was fortunate for your family member, that it didn't change anything mentally, but that's not necessarily the case with everybody, right? Life twists and turns very fast for us sometimes. And, that's the reason why we're having this conversation today. So,
it's unexpected.
Yeah. So, this comes to mind for two reasons. Of course, I've helped people understand their options in my life, close friend recently. And of course, because our last show was based on, you're trying to sell your home. We're getting through the process of home ownership one way or another, whether, the new buyer comes in, the new seller does what they do, and, wherever that seller goes from there is up to them. A lot of people transition from a bigger house to a smaller house, right? So, eventually they could still be in an I own department, not an I renting or I'm going to a nursing home or assisted living situation. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today. The key takeaway from this is about being prepared.
Right.
Yes, you have to talk about the tough questions like, who do I want to manage my affairs for me? Do I want the courts? Do I want a family member? Do I want a neutral party? Do I want an attorney?
Right.
To handle this? Those are all options, one way or another, if you choose or not, that you're going to get. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, probate. What is probate? So the courts want to find an equitable way to resolve an estate based on what they know about the estate. So they're going to need to know all family members that will be immediate heirs to the estate. And that, believe it or not, includes siblings of past children.
Right.
So, like in my case, with my father, when he passed away, there were seven total children. Okay, that my dad was a part of. I'm sorry. Let me back up. his mom. He was part of a 7 children family. Okay, and
One of
he had
seven.
he had one of 7. He had passed away. His brother had passed away. There were 5 sisters that still lived, and if the case would have gone to probate, then probate would have had to have acknowledged the siblings, one way or another, of my dad and of his brother as people who had a say in the process in the event there was no executor declared. Now,
Okay.
um, you know about the executor role because you had to step forward and do that, and
Yep.
I do too, because my sister elected me executor for my mom's estate at the time of her death. Now, so even though having these uncomfortable questions are hard, Fletch, if you knew in advance of when something was going to happen, do you think you would want to have those conversations with your mom, your dad, or all of your siblings?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, knowing that it's gonna happen, but when you don't know, you don't like to think about it. Is that what you're getting at? Or
Yeah, like
yeah,
I mean, if you happen to know, just I mean, um, imagine with me because I know we don't know. We
right,
we
right.
we don't know when our time is to go, but we do know this: we're gonna go.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
Right.
it's the one guarantee, and we often joke about death and taxes being the one guarantee in the United States that you are going to come to.
I mean, my mom died in '06. She was not in great health. She wasn't in dying health, but she wasn't in superb health. She wasn't in a great physical shape for a many number of years leading up to her death. It was just like what happens a lot of times. You get, especially with elderly people, you get pneumonia, which is really hard on the body, and that triggers what ultimately ends up being death. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not, and that's kind of what happened to my mom. She was already diabetic and all these other things, but the pneumonia was the last straw. It just put her into a place where it was really tough, and she struggled for 5 weeks, but she had eventually succumbed. But all that time, even the years before all that, it never crossed my mind to have these conversations about, because
Right,
you don't think you almost don't want to think about it,
that was
let
me.
alone think about it. So
Same
I
here.
I don't I never thought about it. I never even thought, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I never even thought about it. Which it all worked out fine, but it would have been a lot, I would say, easier to a certain degree. Death is never easy, so it's not her death would have been easier, but some of the other intangible things that we had to jump through and get done were a little bit more cumbersome because she wasn't set up, if that's
Yeah,
the best way to explain it.
yeah,
So
yeah, and I experienced a little of that too. Now, mom did a great job with certain assets that she had. Now, we didn't have any real estate, but there was some financial accounts that she had beneficiary assignment to. There was a stock that she did not officially do a transfer on death
okay.
designation. So, because of that, we had to have an attorney involved, and the attorney had to run it through probate. And that was time consuming, costly, more
Yep.
costly than necessary.
Sure.
And if there's one takeaway that I'm trying to educate people on this, if you do something about this now, you're going to save your family time and money.
Right.
And really having the right approach to whatever works for your family is going to be better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
If you do nothing and probate gets involved, well, then it's going to stir up a swarm of emotions, a lot of anxiety, unnecessary anxiety in some people's lives because doubt and dare I say greed is one of those things that twists the mind, and the real intention of the heart amongst family members, especially. So, this is something that if you have a choice to make a difference in, by all means, please do. So, I wrote a blog just this week on the matter, and you can see that at my ericgroffrealtor.com page. Just check out my site for further information about your options. There it is, on choices to manage your asset. Now, the two I want to talk about today specifically are, as just mentioned, transfer on death. So you can go to the auditor recorder's office. One happens first, then the other gets recorded
Like
as
the county auditor?
with the county,
Okay.
and actually submit something that is intentional for real estate. Now, you've also mentioned the will, and it's my understanding that the will does not allow you to transfer the ownership of the real estate fully, because if there is a question of who is in the family, ergo the heirs, like if you have three family members from a set of parents and both parents have passed, those three individuals will all need to be looked at through opening up the estate, right? Somebody's going to be declared the executor, and the executor will be making decisions on behalf of the family. And all that has to kind of run through probate to make
Right.
sure clear and understood. But if you'd like to avoid that experience, you can fill out, have an attorney obviously set this up so it's all the correct language built into it, and sign in front of a notary so that it's official. That gets us submitted to the auditor, and the auditor recognizes it as sends it over to the recorder so that you have a recorded instrument.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can just obtain and hold this document and present it in a timely manner upon death, and with the copy of the, or not a copy, a real death certificate, right? Not like printed copy version, but have to submit an actual. And then that asset can get changed in title, the name title, correctly, so that the new owner, whoever it's declared, will be recorded accordingly. Okay, so
if I own a home,
yeah,
and I want to get the transfer upon death, is that what it's called? Transition
yeah,
upon death?
transfer TOD.
And let's say I have two siblings of my own, but I have one offspring. I got one child.
Yeah, and
So I can say in that thing that I want my child to be the person that becomes the owner of the home. Is that how that works? Or
well, so that's a good question. So if they're not of legal age, 18 or older, that won't work.
okay,
They can't take title. So in that case, version number 2 of what I'm personally experienced with is getting a trust established. And a trust is another legal instrument that allows you to direct intentions from your, how do you want to be handled when you pass, in terms of cremation or real burial, where you're embalmed and you
sure.
casket process. You can make decisions as far as your who is to handle the assets in your estate. So you have trustees designated.
Okay.
Now, and my wife and I'm and her are both designated trustees of our trust currently, because we're both living.
Right.
Should one of us pass, then the other is the assumed trustee of the estate. So that person can manage. Now, because the trust also works in the event that we pass simultaneously, or in such a close proximity,
Right.
that either one of us can step forward to be the trustee to the estate, then we have trustee assignment in the trust. Getting a little in the weeds as far as all this legal uh, jumbo.
Right.
So
Jargon.
yeah, jargon. So
And a lot of times that could be a family member, but it also could be an attorney, like you were saying, right?
yeah,
Right.
if listen, all of our families are different.
Right.
The dynamics of individual relationships are different, right? If that person, you understand that fully and have any concerns about how designating one person as the trustee might influence a storm amongst the family, then maybe it would be best if you had a neutral party manage things. But that's going to take some research to figure out who you think is suitable professionally, and will uh, do right by your family. Now, that being aside, you can specify what needs to happen in the trust. I mean, there's just so much more control in
Okay.
a trust as a blanket of all of your assets and what you want done with them. I mean,
Oh,
there are really a lot of it's this comes down to having the conversations with what you feel is best family members, or from your gut what you want to do. So
so it almost kind of sounds like trust is uh, creating a trust is probably the better way to go. I mean, are there
it
any
can be.
cons?
I mean, it just depends on the level of uh, do you know who you want to care for your kids, for example?
Right.
Like that can be put in the trust. Like, because
Okay.
if you have minors in your family, which I know you do,
Yep.
you can designate who you want to step forward. And obviously, you have to have a conversation with those people, right? Whether it's family
Yes.
members or not, you have to have conversations with them about their comfort level in, you know, becoming their guardian going forward. So um, that this document and your intentions is the legal way that you have in controlling who cares for your children versus the state coming in. Like, again, if you and I, Fletch, had an untimely death with our wives present and our kids weren't for whatever reason, what happened to our kids?
Right.
I mean, that was a conversation my wife and I were having. Like,
Oh yeah.
we don't want them just put in a foster care system. If we have a choice, we'd rather them be with a family member, and probate would seek that out. Believe it or not,
But that could become a sticky situation if
it
the family
could.
family members that are still around are arguing over who
Oh,
gets
that's
what,
right.
all
That's
that
right.
stuff. I mean, that's another
And
layer.
and add this a little later into it. Let's say, let's pretend it's somebody other than ourselves, and there's a whole bunch of money at stake. I'm talking about millions of dollars because that particular individual has done very well in life. Or they had
Right.
an inheritance, whatever. So those individual family members would be fighting over the rights to care for that child and all the assets that would help manage that child's, quote unquote, well-being.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely it could get a lot stickier, messier, emotional than it
Oh yeah.
needs to be if you don't have assignment of intent. So yeah,
Is it? Is I guess the other question I'm thinking of is a trust. Just because we're talking about that,
yeah,
is that going to be the final say? I mean,
it is
like
when it
like if
yeah.
if I say I want this person to look after my kids, and they've already agreed to it. It's not like I'm dropping a bomb on them when I pass away untimely, me and my wife. So we got it all set up, and
Yeah.
another person was like, well, I don't like that, and it's sort of like another sibling. So could they? I mean, I guess
No,
you can
no,
sue, you can
they
do anything
can't.
in court, but I mean, so there's no legal grounds for any of that per
Unless,
se.
okay, so, initially, because the trust works as the vehicle that manages the new way it's going to be, right? This
Right,
is this is the intent of the deceased, and it's legal and binding. The individual who now steps forward and cares for that person doesn't necessarily have to be the trustee. Okay,
right,
so
right.
keep this in mind. The trustee can still manage the assets that are funneling over to the person who are caring for your children. Okay, like they're giving them so much per month as a way to keep them from, misusing the funds.
Funds, right.
If that individual that now has care of your children for any reason has conflict with the law, they would be in a position of breaking the,
Okay.
you know, the good intent that the deceased had of you caring for that child in
Okay.
the first place.
And
So,
that makes sense.
and right, I mean, just like parents themselves, they can lose rights to caring for their own children if there is a situation where they're neglected or abandoned
Or
or
endangered.
abused,
Right.
endangered, yeah, you name it. Right, the law will come in, and social services has to get involved, and
Right.
yeah, so that's a whole nother layer. But yeah, I'm a really big fan. If it's simple, if there's no children involved, and it's just real estate, then having a transfer on death assignment to the property itself keeps the courts from a lot of involvement, keeps attorneys from greasing their palms too much, because you've got a legal declared document. All you have to do is present that along with the death certificate, and then it will happen for you.
Right.
That the recorder's office is by law they recognize this is legal and binding. So that's something that's going to keep the process simple. But if it's not just one particular home, or even if it's up to three homes, I mean, you could assign three different homes in the same transfer of death
Okay.
intent, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be like
One for
individuals.
each. Right.
No, right. So, um, but if other assets are involved, let's say there's I don't know, 401k, if there's a bank account with a large amount of money, if there's stock, there's real estate, if there's children, you've got a whole lot of layers going on there. And realistically, it would be best if you had a vehicle trust that has the intent of what to do with all this. So, yeah.
So I know you mentioned that the transition is a legal document, the county auditor, and then goes to the recorder kind of thing. When it's a
Yep.
trust, is it still going through the county for recording it all, or is it just in the hands of a lawyer?
Well, so the trust managed the individual asset accordingly. So consider that if it's a real estate asset, then it's got to get a new assignment. Now, in the case where my wife and I established a trust, we put this property in the name of the trust.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
The trust owns the property.
The trust owns a property so that whatever the trustee, whoever that happens to be that we assigned, they can decide what to do with the property. If they want to sell it, they have the right to do that. If they want to rent it, they have the right to do that. Either way, they are in charge of where it's going next. Like if they want to claim it, like in other words, I'm the trustee and I have the rights to assign it to me because it will serve me, one of the heirs of, and the trustee has the They have the power, if you will,
Right.
to determine what is best for, the intentions of
Per se,
the deceased.
let's say you have a 19-year-old kid, so they're not a minor. Mom and dad get killed in a car accident, heaven
Yep.
forbid. The trust is there. The trust owns the house, and the trustee can say, "Hey, let's sell the house and give that money to the kid for college or something like that." I mean, that's
Right.
But now you can say that when you make your trust, but it's a good idea not to get too particular because in 10 to 15 years from now, so many things could change. It's better
Great-
to have a
great
trustee
question. Yeah.
have more lateral room. For instance, I'm leaving my house to this person, and 20 years from now, when you die, they get the house, but they don't need it, and they already own another one. Now they got to do something with it, versus the trustee being a person that does something with it. And what happens if the trustee dies
Well, there is
before you die?
there's a successor trustee.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to name, two at least.
Okay.
We named 3 in ours. So
Okay.
so great. Look at you. You're forward thinking, and that was good logic that you laid out there. Is maybe defining all of it so much might not fit like the kind of puzzle piece that you're actually going to end up with.
You never know what life's going to do.
You don't know. But,
Yeah.
the beauty is that the trustee is in charge of that asset without the intervention of probate. Ergo, if there happens to be a mortgage still on the property, that trustee is now financially responsible for paying
Ooh.
so that
Okay.
it doesn't go in default, so that the bank can take it away.
Right.
So it does come with some layers of responsibility there. And through the guidance of legal counsel, these kind of what you can anticipate will either be fed from the legal side, or you as an individual, you can lay it out on a sheet of paper and say, hey, to the trustee, here's what's got to be paid on a regular basis, because this is what I know right now. In the event that, there's no longer a mortgage on this place, you still have county tax and hazard insurance to buy on a regular basis. They'll have utilities to pay, and these are the utilities. I mean, you can get really intricate in all the financial responsibilities of that asset. You can get detailed in how much of a percentage you want to go to somebody or a church or other thing. I mean, listen,
Right.
the trust is, it's like, to me, it acts like a will, but it's a lot more flexible in the fact that it handles all different kinds of assets, and it handles them in the smallest of details if you want, or you can leave it, more on the I trust you, trustee, to manage this according for our family, and so
Right. Well, for instance, somebody might need a pretty expensive medical procedure, and the house could be sold to help that. Somebody in the family, one of the offspring and stuff like that. So yeah, that would make sense, because you can think, oh, let's just do this with it, and in 15 years, none of that's applicable. So why get that specific versus having a trustee that can just make the decisions then?
Something else I failed to mention. You said 15 years. What say you change your mind a year from now, and you've got different intentions for whatever reason? You can change them.
Oh, okay.
The trust allows you to change them. So they'll make what we call typically in real estate an addendum that will be attached, and whatever those new, as long as they're signed by the living trustees, then they're applicable. Going forward, they will supersede whatever was written into the original trust. So another benefit that this isn't, you're not locked in to something permanently, because yeah, life changes, and sometimes, you know,
Yeah. And like decisions you got to make are: is there a family member that like when my mom passed away, my siblings, three of them and myself, everybody agreed that I would be the executor, and I was okay with it because yes, I was grieving my mom and all that, but I knew I had the faculty enough to uh, see through what needs to be done and get it done. And I know like one of my siblings would never want to do that. Because it's because how close they were with mom. Not any
yeah,
more close than anybody else. It was different, like you said. Siblings are different. Everybody handles families are different. I personally would say that even though there's four of us, we're all different in this one family, all raised in the same house, but we're
yeah,
all very different. So you wouldn't want somebody to have to do something that they really didn't feel comfortable doing. They didn't have the faculty doing it. It just makes them cry or they're too
yeah,
emotional,
emotional. Yeah, it's
and
very emotional.
that could be everybody in your family. So that's when you have maybe a cousin or an uncle or a lawyer, completely unrelated. For whatever the dynamics. Maybe all your siblings are fighting all the time, so you don't trust any of them. I mean, there's
Right.
so many layers to it, but so you just gotta look at your family dynamic and figure out what makes the most sense for who would be in charge of your trust. And honestly, it sounds like the older now. Let's say I'm 52. I make a trust in the next year, and it's all said and done. We got it done,
Yeah,
and then 25 years from now, my wife's passed away. My kids are all grown and married, and I'm by myself.
yeah,
So does it make sense to have the trust anymore to where it's like, okay, I sold my house, I'm living in a rental place, and so I guess I could, still make the addend it to where I just have somebody that divvies up everything amongst the kids, or do you? Because there is nothing else besides a transition of property. That's for property, but other stuff it would have to go through a will or a trust, right?
correct. Through the trust vehicle in 25 years, Fletch, whether or not you had a property or not, I bet you're going to have something asset wise, whether it was
Right, right,
liquid. I mean,
right.
whether it's liquid, like you can get cash instantly, or it was parked in, you
Retirement
know,
funds and all that.
some sort of IRA, right? Yeah,
Right.
whether it's Roth um, bonds, whatever. I mean, you have assets. Those assets have to have a beneficiary assignment. And as long as the declaration of each asset is attached to the trust, then the trustee gets to manage where those go.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
So
um,
I guess one question is, can you say that this is not only to laugh? I want to assign all my assets to the trust, and then the
yeah.
trustee can do whatever they want, except give it to themselves. Can you say that just to make sure
Sure.
the person? I
Well,
just wondered.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
Again,
I
you
don't
have,
trust him.
well, yeah, you could say, in no way should the trustee give ownership or the cash equivalent to themselves more than 50% if there's two kids in the family.
Okay.
If both siblings are living, or let's fast forward to when they have kids.
Right.
So, even though this person maybe have passed, but they produce two other children, shouldn't those two children earn or be entitled rather the assets equally to the one sibling, right? So that there's a balance there. Had this
Right.
other sibling been alive, she would have gotten the assets equally to the other one. But you see where I'm going with that.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah.
now you
Yeah.
can declare it like that. So it's it I my wife and I put a lot of trust in our trustees to know that
Hence
they're
the name
going to
trust.
do, yeah, to know that they're going to
Right.
do the right thing for all remaining surviving members of
I'll,
our.
I'll give you a quick story that I've never told you. Not for any reason. It pertains to this. That's why it doesn't really come up in conversations. My mom, her first birth was my brother, and then
Okay.
after that, she gave birth to a girl
Okay.
who she put up for adoption because she was not married to the person. This was
Okay.
back in the 50s in Tennessee. And then she found my dad and had my two sisters and myself. And my dad adopted my brother. So
Okay.
we're all under the same name.
Sure.
But there was one kid out there that wasn't in this family. So,
Because of
my
the
mom-
adoption assignment,
Right.
right?
So
Yeah,
my
but
mom-
legally she's an heir.
right. So my mom had moved back home with her parents with my brother, and then she got pregnant and all that. So fast forward to, I think, a couple years ago, maybe 3 at the most. I get a thing in the mail from some company, life insurance company from, I've never heard of them before. And then there's a note that it took some unraveling to figure out. My grandparents, my mom's parents, took out a life insurance policy in case something happens to them because they're taking care of her and her kid. Because she, and so basically that
This
life
was a-
insurance policy.
This is a whole life insurance policy you're telling me about, not a term life.
Right.
Like,
And I'm guessing that because basically grandma and grandpa died in the 90s. My mom died in 2006. And somehow or another, they're looking for somebody to take the benefit from this policy,
Correct.
which ends up being my mom's children, which is the 4 siblings. There's actually
Correct.
5.
Yes.
But nobody knows where this 5th one is. And I have tried, ever since my mom passed away, before I knew about this policy, I've gone through all kinds of the websites and the Facebook pages and all, trying to find, and there's just nothing, no
Yeah.
luck whatsoever in finding it. And I'm saying, hey, for all
Yeah.
we know, this person could have died in a car accident. So I mean, it's just so hard to figure out who it was. I called one of my cousins who's really tight in the family, and I said, do you know anything about, the where? She didn't even know my mom had done that. And she was
Yeah.
like close friend of the family, and for years, she's like, I never knew your mom had another kid. I'm like, you're kidding? You didn't know that? I'm like, very crazy. So basically, I think the policy ended up being like $4,000 is the benefit of it. So I don't know what it cost back in the 50s and what any of that all was, but so me and my sister.
There sounds
got-
a lot of trouble for such a little amount, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I had to get myself. I've never had. I don't. My sister was kind of like, "What do you mean you don't have one?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't. I've never had a copy of my own birth certificate, and I was born in Texas,
Okay.
so I had to pay to get one sent to me from Texas, which I did. Now I have one. I thought I should have one anyway, so I'm just going to do it.
Right.
I got that, and of course I have some of Mom's birth certificates. We had like 5 or 6 when she passed away, so I had one. I had to submit all this stuff. Basically, I lived off the knowledge of my sister. She went through all the hoops and figured out, because she's a law person, got it all figured out, got it done, and she got her cut. And then she sent to me, here's what you do. And I did everything, and I got my cut, so. But yeah, we don't know where said
5th
one
is.
and with passing of my mom, a lot of times I've seen where on those shows where they find people and the person they're looking for, when they find them, they look just like the mom. They just, it's like, so
Yeah.
in our mind, we're like, what if she's just like mom? What if she plays
if she
piano?
is?
How
Right.
freaky would that be,
Yeah.
And so I've always wanted to find her, and I've just, I came, what I would consider, so it's kind of hard to say it came close. I found somebody that we were doing the math. Okay, my brother's like, I'm almost positive she has the same birthday I do, but 1 year later. So I'm like, so you're telling me that mom gave birth and then in 12 months gave birth again? I'm like, dude, that's really close. Not to mention, when she gave birth to you, she was married to your dad, who they're divorced, and then she gets into another relationship with somebody, and then they're at a wedlock. The guy was married.
It's not impossible, Fletch.
I'm like, that's dude. Are you sure? Maybe it wasn't 2 years.
Yeah,
And so
not impossible.
the more we thought about it, we deduced it wasn't 1 year; it was 2 years.
Okay.
Based on the timeline of, because we got on Ancestry and saw all the things about when my mom's divorce was from her first husband, and my mom and dad got married and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So we went with that right around my brother's birthday, 2 years after he was born. He was born in 61, so 63. And I found somebody on one of the sites that was Tennessee 63 Catholic. I mean, all these things. It just checked all the boxes. So much so that I went on Ancestry, and so did she. We ended up talking on Facebook, and I ended up calling her one time. Southern talking, just like she said. She jokingly said that she was always an Elvis baby. And that's why she got put up for adoption, because Elvis was her dad. Because Elvis back then. So. I got the Ancestry. She got the Ancestry, but at the same time, and when we finally got them, there was literally zilch matching between the two of us. We're just flat out not related. Yeah,
okay,
not in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, I don't know, man. I said, I'm rejecting this. Because a
little disappointed.
When I first saw a picture of her, I started crying because I thought I saw my mom's face in her face. You know what I mean? Sure. I think when you want to see something, maybe you will, but
yeah,
I don't know if that's it or not. So I went to another site. I downloaded my stuff. I went to another site, submitted it. Same thing. So then, unbeknownst to me, one of my brother's kids, now granted, my brother has a different dad, so there's a little dynamic there when it comes to DNA. Okay. And one of his children got the same Ancestry thing done. So one day, my Ancestry pops up. You got a match, it's one of my nieces. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she shows up as I think, third or fourth cousin. And it's because she doesn't have the 100% from, my brother doesn't have 100% from the same I do, because different father. Right. Half the DNA.
Right.
So I started looking up what is a half sibling going to look like on a DNA chart. How do they show up? And they show up as it should be closer than she is to me. Because she's below my brother, and this girl is equal to my brother. Mm-hmm. So it should. So if my brother actually ever got DNA, he's a half brother. He would show up exactly as this girl would, because she has a different father,
Right.
Nobody knows who her father is either. It's just crazy, So anyways, so
the
my
mystery.
brother, big time. So yeah, was really disappointed, because me and this lady got along so long. I said, look, if you're not related to me, I'm still adopting you into my family. She's just super nice. She loved the pictures of our kids and stuff, And we kept in touch for a while, but eventually, and I understand, she never had her own real family, so she was really kind of looking to see if she could find her own siblings, if there were any. Yeah. And but she has a great family, great husband, great kids, really nice, and I think she's a sweetheart. And so it was a bummer in a lot of different directions that she wasn't my sister, half sister.
Right.
But anyways, that policy was the whole get go of that. That here we go, 1950 something to 2010s. And then here comes this policy of 60 something years ago.
It's crazy.
Looking for a beneficiary. It's like, oh, okay. So,
but there you go. There's another, I didn't mention, asset of the trust. I mean, if you have any life insurance policies,
right.
Make sure that they're assigned to the trust. So, again, it simplifies all of the legwork that you just talked about to find one person. I mean, it simplifies what that individual has to manage, right? Because if they have it all in front of them as a declared asset, it's just a lot. You've simplified matters to the point as if that individual now does the same job of the deceased, which is, I know what I got and I know what I need to do with it, and I'm going to do with it whatever I need to for my family.
Yep. So did we cover everything in this topic, or did we leave a lot on the table?
Okay. I mean, as much as I can. Again, that's good. More of it is about conversation starters here, and you talking amongst your family, talking with an attorney. Those are things that you need to do. I don't know that. I mean, I'm happy to take questions. Still waiting on questions.
Right.
But it's all about conversation starter here.
Yeah, and honestly, there's so many different types of lawyers. So I guess it would be
excuse me.
What type of lawyer handles that kind of thing? I guess it's more of the type of lawyer that does wills and living trust, stuff like that.
Yep.
So
specifically people who do wills and trusts. Yep.
Right. So
and I have a good referral naturally but let's see if we get any fish on the hook before I dole out that.
Sure. I was even thinking as you were talking during the show, that might be a good another show is law stuff. Law. But there's so many. There's
And I'm not
so
an
many
attorney.
layers of law. Oh, I know. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into legal criminal law, all
Right.
that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we would be walking a very thin line there,
Right.
talking
But,
out one side of our mouth.
Yeah, wills and living trust stuff like that could be an interesting, for people, if they're not thinking about it, try to present it in a way where
Yeah.
you really understand. It's tough conversations, but get them done, get them out of the way. Like I said, talk to your spouse if you have one, and figure out what makes most sense for you, and then just seek out a lawyer and talk to them and get some advice, and then just get it done. And then, like you said, it's so much seamless for those once you go on what needs to be done and what hoops they won't have to jump through if you have something set up ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's 50? This
Is our
show.
longest, I think.
The longest show. But it's a good topic. And I'm very glad we talked about it.
It's a tough one, certainly.
It is, and but it's a good one. So we hope you enjoyed it, and certainly if you guys questions, you can shoot them to us. I'm sure if you want to know the name of Eric's referral, you can reach out to him. You can do that through ericgoffrealtor.com if you want. You can do it through this video on Facebook or YouTube. Leave a comment. And if you want to do a PM, you can let us know so we can PM you. That way it's not out for others to see. That's fine. Whatever makes more sense for you. If you want to reach out and ask us any questions, we'll be more than happy to do so. So with that said, do you got a restaurant at all, or in thought, or one of our little segments we like to do here is
Ladder 7?
Company 7?
Company 7?
Company 7. We ate barbecue yesterday with a good friend of ours. Broke some bread. The good friend is the guy who's got videos on this network as well. He's a Wookiee. He's a military man. He's a cop. He's everything. Mark Gow. He's got 2 on here. If you haven't watched those, they're excellent to watch. If you're not a Star Wars fan, you'll still enjoy it, but definitely the second one, his military service and his service to the community as a police officer. We back the blue here at the Fletch Entertainment Network, so absolutely. Mark is a great guy. And I know you know him a little bit more than I do over the years, and I really enjoyed meeting him and his family. It was great. A lot of fun. I look forward to hanging out with him some more and having some more laughs. It was really good to sit back and laugh. Having laughed, it was a lot of fun. So
It was.
Company 7, we've talked about it a couple times, and I think that you just can't say it enough. Their barbecue is just really, really good. So we'll just make that a cumulative thing. The two of us are presenting to you once again, Company 7.
Company 7.
Excellent. Right off the freeway on 70 and Inglewood exit. Really easy to get in and out of. Big place, tons of places to sit, and it's just melt in your mouth. You want to go back.
That first bite in was just amazing.
I thought you were stabbed. You were like, oh,
I was like,
this is so good. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
And we'll just let you know what we had. We had, Eric and myself, we had what's called the pulled rib meat sandwich. So it's not pulled pork. They make ribs and then they pull the meat off the bones and put them on a sandwich. So it's literally rib meat sandwich. Yeah. And it does taste different than pulled pork. And it's fantastic. And when I saw that many months ago for the first time, I'm like, man, that sounds good. And I bit into it. I'm like, okay, I'm hooked,
Yeah.
I'm an addict.
Yeah.
So
I will be forever too.
No doubt. So, all right. We're going to wrap this one up. I had a great time today. Quickly again, Facebook and YouTube. Like and share if you're on Facebook. YouTube, subscribe, and click the bell. You'll get all the notifications you want. And you can certainly go back and watch. We got a lot of videos and a lot of different topics, especially with the Navigating to Your Home Sweet Home segment. There's a lot of topics in there. 11. This is number 11. And then, of course, I got some good stuff with Mark we talked about. Also, I have another good one with a guy named Dan who was a soldier. That's the wrong word. A guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier for like 21 months. And that is a pretty intense thing to undertake. So that's a really good video if you want to watch that, especially right around Memorial Day that just went by here. Great video for that. And another great 86er from Wayne, You guys in 86 are killing us 87s. Putting us to shame. But
Whatever. We're all working collaboratively. That's the beauty about this, you know?
right. So until next week, we will see you, and we'll have more in the realm of houses to talk about. With maybe some other surprises as well too. So, Eric, have a great week, and
Thank you.
I will
You too,
see
Fletch.
you next week. And enjoy the music. It is co-written by the man Eric. He also plays guitar too. Yes, and drums. Maybe we'll talk about Eric and some of the other things he's done in his life some days. We won't do it tonight though. So,
Okay.
have a great time, and we will see you guys all next week. Enjoy
All right.
the music.
See you guys.